Every headline you have ever read connecting vitamin D to testosterone comes from a single study of 54 men. I went and read it. There is a hole in that study wide enough to drive an entire industry through, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. But this is not really a video about a vitamin. It is about the difference between two things that look identical on a lab report and are not: a marker and a lever. A marker reports on your life. A lever changes it. Confusing the two is the most expensive mistake in modern self-improvement. And vitamin D is where it happens most often. Here is the shape of it. A man gets a blood panel back, and one line is flagged. He reads for 20 minutes, and the internet hands him something that feels like a diagnosis. Low vitamin D means low testosterone, weak performance, flat mood, soft mornings. He orders a bottle that afternoon, and because he does not do things at half speed, he buys the 5,000 unit version rather than the 1,000. 6 months later, the number is beautiful. Nothing else is different. That experience is not a failure of discipline. It is the predictable result of pulling on something that was never a lever. Before we take anything apart, the case for vitamin D deserves to be stated at full strength, because it is not junk. The systematic review published in late 2025 poured 10 studies covering more than 13,000 men. Men with poorer vascular function consistently carried lower vitamin D, and the relationship held after adjusting for lifestyle, cardiovascular risk, and sex hormones. Related work puts a slope on it. For every 10 nanogram drop, prevalence rises by roughly 12%, and the mechanism makes sense. The active form of vitamin D participates in nitric oxide signaling and in the health of the endothelium, the single layer of cells lining every blood vessel you own. Nitric oxide is what allows a vessel to relax and fill. Low vitamin D, poorer endothelial function, worse performance. If you were designing a supplement pitch, you could not ask for better raw material, so somebody tested it. 21,315 people, randomized, half receiving vitamin D and half receiving a placebo, followed for years. At the 3-year mark, the investigators looked at exactly this outcome. Nothing changed, not overall, not in any subgroup, not in any sensitivity analysis they ran afterwards. And it is not an isolated result. The largest daily supplementation trial ever conducted gave 25,871 adults 2,000 units a day for a median of 5 years. No reduction in cancer, no reduction in cardiovascular events, no reduction in death from any cause. It also found no excess harm, and that half of the sentence matters just as much. At sensible doses, this is a safe supplement. It is simply a supplement with a much smaller job than the label implies, which brings us back to the study of 54 men, 2011, men in a weight reduction program. 31 of them took 3,300 units of vitamin D daily for a year. In that group, total testosterone climbed from 10.7 to 13.4. The placebo group did not move. That table is the origin of everything you have been told. Here is what never travels with it. The men were vitamin D deficient at baseline. Their testosterone was already low, and no statistical comparison between the two groups was ever performed. Read that again. The famous result is a before and after inside one arm of the study. It is not a test of whether the treatment beat the placebo. The authors said as much themselves and asked for randomized trials to confirm it. They got them. 100 healthy men, 12 weeks, no effect. 100 men whose testosterone was already low, which is the easiest place on earth to find an effect. No effect, and estradiol did not move either. Then a meta-analysis of 8 randomized trials. No effect at any dose, any duration, any frequency, any baseline level. There is one more piece, and it is the one I find most useful, because it is not about a vitamin at all. There is an instinct in ambitious people. If a little is good, then a lot delivered efficiently must be better. Skip the daily nagging. Take the year in one hit. In 2010, researchers gave 2,256 women over 70 single annual dose of 500,000 units. The logic was compliance. Daily habits fail, so remove the habit. Falls rose by about 15%. Fractures rose by about 26%. And the excess clustered in the 3 months immediately after each dose, exactly when blood levels were highest. More frequent, lower doses show no such harm. The current reading is that the body registered a flood and corrected against it. The dose that felt most efficient produced the worst outcome through the body's own regulatory machinery. Your physiology is not a ladder where more input yields more output. It is a regulator. Push hard in one direction and it pushes back, and the number itself is less solid than it feels. The 30 nanogram target printed on lab reports was set by the Endocrine Society in 2011. In 2024, the same society withdrew it, and now advises against routine testing in healthy adults under 75 because the trials never established a level below which supplementation is required. Days before I recorded this, the medical press pointed out that vitamin D is still one of the most ordered laboratory tests in American primary care, and the volume has barely moved. Nobody updated the order form. Deficiency is still real. Testing still matters for people with kidney disease, malabsorption conditions, and a few other categories. But the precision you feel when you read your own result is borrowed. So what is that number actually reporting on? Most of the vitamin D in your body was never swallowed. It was manufactured in skin, and that manufacturing runs on physics rather than intention. Ultraviolet B strikes bare skin and starts the reaction. Season, time of day, cloud cover, pigment, and sunscreen all change how much of it arrives. And ultraviolet B does not pass through glass. Your office window, your windscreen, the brightest room in your house, none of it produces a single unit. You can spend the whole of July in light and arrive in September with a February reading, which tells you exactly what a low result is describing. Not a shortage of capsules, a life spent indoors, and that life never arrives alone. It brings less movement, less sleep, and more weight around the middle. And every one of those drags on the outcomes people blame on the vitamin. The level is honest. It is telling the truth about how you have been living. It is just not the thing you can pull on. So the question was never how many units you should take. It is which one has actually been running your last 6 months. The bottle or the hours you spent outside. The full briefing with every source is linked below.